Now it sounds like a library. Sorry to interrupt all the fun. We will, after our event tonight, we'll have more time for everyone to go back to the VR, etc., downstairs and wander around. I am Elizabeth Cowell, very fortunate to be the university librarian here at UC Santa Cruz. And I am so happy to finally be celebrating the dedication of 2 floors of this beautiful building for Sandy Faber and Kathy Sullivan. So to get the full picture of this project, I'm just going to give you a little tiny bit of context and then introduce our honorees. So we are one university library with 3 locations. This library, McHenry Library, and I would say our robust online presence is yet another. So we had an incredibly successful renovation of the McHenry Library, reopening a fully expanded, renovated building in 2011. And we learned a lot from that project. We learned that students and faculty and staff want every kind of space, quiet, active, silent. They want all kinds of technology and spaces and furniture. And so when it opened, we had done such a good job. Within the first 3 months of our opening, our gate counts were up 75%. So that made me think, is it because everybody's up at the science library, the construction was too noisy? Will it settle down to a more normal state? Well, that didn't happen. The numbers just kept going up. So we turned our attention to this library that used to be the new library and then was looking a little bit dated and thought, how can we rethink a library as a space and a set of services to support student success, especially considering our increasingly diverse student body and in the STEM fields, as this is the science and engineering library. So what do we need in this space? What don't we need in this space? Implementing any new, and in this case, I would say daring vision, is not easy. And without the incredible support and expertise of my associate university librarians who are here with us tonight, Carrie Scott and John Bono, I don't think we would have been this successful. So I want to just give them a little shout out. So the renovated floor we are on right now, the Sandra Faber floor, opened in January 2020 and was immediately popular. Unfortunately, we all know what happened next. We had to shut down, and the buildings, both library buildings, were closed until July 2022. So this led me to rethink the plans for our ground floor, again, forefronting student success, and really putting the Digital Scholarship Innovation Studio that you were all just in at the forefront. And this ultimately led to the Kathryn Sullivan floor. So the pandemic, I thought, was the perfect time to renovate. Students weren't in the building, the campus was closed, but then the supply chain issues ensued. And so the physical planning staff persevered along with our library staff, and here we are today, kind of against all odds. I'd also like to thank, in particular, Christy Golubuski-Davis, whose unwavering vision for the Digital Scholarship Innovation Studio led us to that project. So, of course, none of this would have happened without the generosity of Claudia and Alec Webster. A good idea. A good idea only goes so far. Your belief and trust in me and the vision for the library has been truly transformative. Thank you, and thank you for understanding that these floors needed to be named for inspiration. Sandy and Kathy are perfect choices. Claudia, your creativity never ceases to amaze me. The Stars to See theme is all you. So now, again, for the introductions. Sandra Faber, UCSC Professor Emerita of Astronomy and Astrophysics, has a long history of service to the UC system and her field. She was an advisor for 23 UCSC PhD students, served 6 years as astronomy department chair, and was a member of numerous advisory boards. Sandra was an integral was integral to the establishment of the Keck telescopes and was co-principal investigator of the largest survey of the distant universe. Her globally regarded work in astronomy changed the study of galaxies from a qualitative to a quantitative science. President Barack Obama presented Sandy with the National Medal of Science in 2013. She believes scientists have an obligation to serve in ways beyond merely doing research and publishing papers, and to create healthy institutions for the next generation. UCSC alumna and former astronaut Kathryn Sullivan, who graduated from Cowell College, Earth Sciences, 1973, has been dubbed the most vertical person in the world. She was the first American woman to walk in space, and the first woman to explore the deepest spot in the oceans, and the first person to do both. Sullivan led the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration as Undersecretary of Commerce for Oceans and Atmosphere. She flew on 3 shuttle missions during her 15-year tenure as an astronaut. Sullivan is a member of the Astronaut Hall of Fame and was one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people in the world in 2014. She is responsible for creating both the Kathryn D. Sullivan Scholarship Award and the Research Impact Award in Earth and Marine Sciences, which supports students and their research here at UC Santa Cruz. So these beautiful plaques will be hung on their respective floors, and I can tell you already, students love these spaces. So if this sounds exciting to you, and if you want to help us do even better, please know that the second floor that you walked in on is yet to be named for a scientist representing somewhere between the stars and the sea. Please let me know if you're interested. We have more work to do on that level in support of student success. So tonight, we'll hear from the Chancellor and then 2 students who will introduce our honorees, who will both say a few words. So over to you, Chancellor Reeve.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I agree with your description of the construction. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Empty buildings, sure, we had those, but so many additional challenges. Really appreciate your leadership, Elizabeth, in making this renovation happy. Thank you. As well as the efforts of our physical planning staff, and what a beautiful and imaginative space it is. This is transformative for our campus and for our current and future students. I'd also like to recognize Claudia and Alec Webster for their vision for this project, to thank them for their generosity which enabled it. They have been a driving force behind a host of campus facilities and programs that advance the university and the trajectory of our students. This is a fantastic addition to that list, and I am very grateful. I was fortunate to have lunch with Alec and Claudia earlier this week, and as usual, I came away inspired by that conversation. Sandy and Kathy, it's wonderful to see you both, and I'm delighted that we are honoring you in this way, and I appreciate your lending your names to UC Santa Cruz in this way. We're proud of our affiliation with you, and it's because you embody the banana slug ethos of academic excellence and service to others. What you're both doing to help the next generation of scholars and change makers is inspiring. I notice we have a few members of the UC Santa Cruz Foundation Board of Trustees today as well, and I want to thank them for attending and showing their support for this project and for our library. So as I stand here, in this beautiful space, I can't help but to think back to my history with the library. How many of you just loved libraries when you were a kid? Yeah, me too. I was a regular customer of the local public library. Starting out in Leeds, South Dakota, it was the Phoebe Apperson Hearst Free Library, because the Hearst family started the gold mine in our little town. I was such a regular attendee that as a kindergartner, I remember getting my first library card. Do you remember library cards? They don't exist anymore. My first visit to a university library was during my first year at South Dakota State University. And I don't remember the details so much, but I do remember lots of books and some especially tall stacks. It was a good place to hide and get some work done. But I can tell you with certainty, it wasn't like this. Libraries have come a long way, and it's all the better for our students. Libraries might not be the first things that you think of when you think about student success, but they should be. The libraries of today, the great libraries, of which this is one, are really assembled with students in mind. This space functions almost like a student union. If you come here at night, especially during finals, it's a buzz. It's safe, it's functional, it's flexible space where undergraduates and graduate students can gather to work quietly, silently, in teams. Some of the places are quite noisy and raucous. There's also gender-neutral bathrooms and a lactation room. And there are lots of outlets. You'll find them everywhere, so you can plug in and charge your devices. And I hope that you will have noticed earlier in the library, I think it's outside here, our new laptop and charger kiosk. It's like a laptop vending machine. Just put in your student ID and you get a laptop or you get a charger and you can use it for several hours and then return it. So thank you, Elizabeth, for hosting that. I was also really delighted to hear that Elizabeth invited our STEM Hub, which supports students traditionally underrepresented in STEM fields, to set up shop on the second floor. It makes the library a destination. And it's not just the spaces themselves that promote student success. So many of our students come to UC Santa Cruz from places that didn't have a certified librarian. And libraries are kind of foreign places to them, but here they can find library staff who are eager to help them learn how to study and how to take full advantage of a research library. And that's really important for both our undergraduates and our graduate students. So student success is really about removing barriers, and I'm excited to say that this library space and the wonderful library staff inside it do just that. What a great addition to our campus. Thanks to everybody who's involved. So now I'd like to introduce Bronwyn Wagman, who is our Director of Development for Physical and Biological Sciences. Bronwyn?
Hi. So we picked a really wonderful Astro grad student to introduce Sandy Faber, and she has COVID. So I am going to read essentially what she was going to say, so you're just going to have to imagine that I am a much younger person who is also very smart, and I'm going to read this to you. Okay, so I have the privilege to say I am an undergraduate alumna of the physics department. I am an exoplaneteer. I have spent the last several years hunting for extrasolar planets, discovering new stars where we thought there may be planets, and collaborating with astronomers around the world to confirm many of the planets found with both the Kepler and TESS space telescopes. Being here on the third floor, where I spent countless hours studying as an undergrad and having the extreme honor of introducing this floor's namesake, is surreal. Over the past 4 years, I have been fortunate to be mentored by and become close to Professor Emerita Dr. Sandy Faber. In May of 2018, Sandy offered astronomy graduate students an opportunity to visit Space Telescope in Baltimore, Maryland. The visit was advertised as an opportunity for us to meet scientists in leadership positions, meet politicians, and find out how scientists fit into the political makeup of our country. As someone who has always been passionate about outreach and science communication, this seemed like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and it was. This was my first introduction to the Osterbrock Leadership Program. The Osterbrock Leadership Program is something Sandy started to mentor and train Astro grad students in leadership. Sandy founded the Osterbrock Leadership Program because she saw a void in astronomy training of graduate students. Sandy saw students being hyper-focused on research and lacking the skills to work as future world leaders. Thus, the Osterbrock Leadership Program was founded, a program that mentors graduate students in leading projects, applying for grants, being mentored by local figures of authority not only in astronomy, but in other areas of science, leadership, and even politics. The model has been so successful that we are now proud to say it is a national program with nodes at Columbia University and at UC Irvine. Problem. As an Osterbrock Fellow, I have gained a network of other fellows who I may call friends and have been able to refine my skills in leading a team, working in a group of sometimes differently minded people, and seeing a promising future career outside of academia that I never would have envisioned had I not been exposed to what my experience as a PhD in astronomy can actually be used for in our society. Sandy's network spreads far and vast, and I have had the pleasure of having intimate conversations with leaders in astronomy, those on Capitol Hill, and local figures of influence. Sandy has allowed us fellows to run the program with her being a resource and providing a structure for us to use as we see fit. I see those who come into the program go on to highly successful careers with the empowerment they gain from the experience. Include an anecdote or two. In 2018, I joined 5 other astronomy graduate students and Sandy on a trip to Baltimore and the DC area. We spent 5 fully packed days meeting the leaders at Space Telescope, the National Science Foundation, Carnegie Institute of Science, Northrop Grumman, House Science and Technology Committee, and had the esteemed privilege of observing a time allocation committee for the Hubble Space Telescope. I could spend hours regaling you of tales from this trip, but one of the most memorable parts of the trip was the time spent commuting from interview to interview, site to site, in a maroon minivan with Sandy at the helm. Us fellows took turns navigating Sandy in the front seat, conversing about the amazing experiences we had and preparing for our next meeting with Sandy's advice. It was an exhilarating and exhausting trip, but Sandy was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed every morning and bid us goodnight with a smile every night. Truly a core memory for me. Talk about the important role Sandy has played as a woman astronomer, blazing the path at a time when few women were in the field. Imagine that. I will refer you to Wikipedia to read about all of Sandy's official accolades. She follows in the footsteps of women like Vera Rubin, Cecilia Payne, Annie Jump Cannon, Nancy Roman, Carolyn Herschel, and so many others who history will write about as being brilliant astronomers and opening doors for future female-identifying astronomers. A colloquium speaker recently said, "It is hard not to be intimidated by someone who has a relation named after them," referring to the Faber-Jackson relation, which relates the velocity dispersion of stars in elliptical galaxies to the total luminosity. Again, check Wikipedia or Faber and Jackson, 1976. Sandy, however, is as warm as they come, and I couldn't be happier to have been able to spend time under her mentorship. Please join me in thanking Sandy for her contributions to astronomy, female-identifying people in science, technology, engineering, art, and math, and underrepresented, underprivileged young minds.
Thank you. I'm really disappointed that you didn't get a chance to meet Erica. She is an extraordinary person. She's going to go on and do something wonderful. And right now I have to tell you that after getting her PhD, she has gone off to live in Sacramento to look after her mother, who is rather ill, and she's going into data science in order to make enough money to support the both of them. And I think that's perfect for an Osterbrock Leadership alumna. Perhaps I could share with you some of my thoughts here on the importance of this evening. First of all, let me just say, echoing the Chancellor, if I had to have a building or a part of a building named after me, it would be the library. I remember so fondly doing physics problems in the DuPont Library at Swarthmore College. And we didn't go to the library just to take books off the shelf. We went to the library in order to interact with our fellow students and get help. You know, that's how we work the problems, by talking about them with our fellow students. I think faculty typically overestimate their impression and influence on students. I think actually students learn much more from their peers. And so a space like this is just the dream come true for students here at this campus, and it's a lot of vision went into constructing this space. Let me also appreciate these beautiful pictures here, and if you've had a chance, you can look all the way around the room and see yet more astronomy. If you're interested afterwards, I can tell you what every one of these pictures is. That's right. And they already have names, but I think there's a naming opportunity in addition, so you might think about that. You might get one of them named after you, and if you'd like to learn about it, I can tell you why it's so important. Well, that's very, that's speaking about the significance of this space for Santa Cruz. But I think we should also think about the significance of naming this space for two women. What does that mean? I'll speak for astronomy. I did a little homework before giving this talk, and I don't think there's ever been a structure named after a woman astronomer before. I couldn't find any buildings or anything named after. And so I think we're sort of at a watershed now, because there are now so many women in the field. Our department just abounds with women from every level, from undergraduates to graduate students, postdocs, and faculty. I haven't done the numbers recently, but a few years ago we had the most female-friendly department in the country. So that's quite an achievement, I think. And this is going to have the result that all of these women who are doing so well, a few years from now, this is a kind of a special moment, because it's not going to be seem so special, you know, in 10, 20, 30 years, which of course is your intent. But I do have to note that there are two other major installations being named after women astronomers. They're not on the ground. They're one of them is the Rubin Telescope in Chile, named after a person who was dear to my heart, almost my PhD advisor, Vera Rubin. That's a huge telescope on the ground in Chile, under construction. And then there's the Nancy Roman Space Observatory, which is going to be an enormous satellite. They're both survey telescopes. They're going to break wonderful new ground. So it's true that the tide is changing. I think we'll see more and more installations named after female astronomers. But let me express my gratitude, because I'm still alive to participate in this ceremony. And both Vera and Nancy have passed on, so it's a great joy to me to be with you and enjoying this event tonight. Thank you so much. I now want to turn the program over to Jenny Pensky, who is a sixth-year graduate student, senior grad in Earth and Planetary Sciences, and doing research in hydrology and vineyards, as I understand it, in Sacramento, and the recipient of the Kathryn D. Sullivan Research Impact Award. So, Jenny, please.
Oh, thank you so much, Sandy. That was so sweet. Okay, hello, everyone. Can you hear me all right with the microphone here? Great. Thank you so much for being here today. I am really honored to introduce Dr. Kathryn Sullivan and get to talk a little bit about her career and generosity and how that has helped my development as a scientist. And so my thesis research has been focused on water resources, improving groundwater supply and quality here in California. And so while Kathy's research has taken her to the deepest depths of the ocean and the furthest reaches of space. Mine has stayed a little closer to home here in the agricultural lands around Watsonville and also in California's Central Valley. And so I look at ways of taking excess water in these regions. So what I mean by that is agricultural runoff, stormwater runoff, high magnitude winter flows from rivers, and getting it back into the ground through infiltration basins, basically big ponds, or from flooding farm fields. And so in 2021, I was honored to receive the Kathryn D. Sullivan Research Impact Award, along with my mentee, who is an undergraduate here who recently finished and went on to a master's, Raymond Hess. And with these funds, we were able to complete fieldwork at a working vineyard just outside of Sacramento, California, where they're diverting high magnitude winter flood flows from the Cosumnes River onto the landscape with kind of multi-goals of managing floodwaters and also recharging groundwater. And so our work involved instrumenting the vineyard in order to measure infiltration rates of the water on the landscape, measure the height of the water on the landscape, and also collect soil and water samples to look at water quality impacts. And so the goal of this research was to quantify the hydrologic and biogeochemical impacts and processes that occurred during infiltration to ensure that these waters delivered maximum benefits to both water supply and quality. And so data gathered in this project is going to help us to answer larger questions about linkages between infiltration, recharge, and nutrient cycling, and will ultimately have important implications for water management. So one of the things I love about this project and about earth science in general is the interdisciplinary nature of the work. Getting to combine principles from physics, chemistry, geology, social sciences in order to better understand the environment and hopefully make meaningful change is really exciting to me. So Dr. Sullivan's work and career has perfectly embodied the interdisciplinary nature of earth science, and this is just one of the reasons I find her to be so inspirational. From going on oceanographic expeditions to spending over 22 days in space to leading the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, Kathy has changed what an earth scientist looks like. Like Dr. Sullivan, my background is in geology, and typically when folks picture a geologist, they might see an older, usually a man, usually a white man, holding a rock hammer, mapping rocks or identifying rocks in the field. But Kathy has really challenged this idea of what a geologist or an earth scientist can be. You know, an astronaut, an oceanographer, a policymaker, just to name a few of those roles. And so she's continuing to change what a scientist and specifically what an earth scientist looks like through her generous gifts to the UC Santa Cruz community, through both the Kathryn D. Sullivan Research Impact Award that allows undergraduate and graduate students like myself the opportunity to conduct their own transformative research, and through this library floor, where I'm sure many students of all scientific disciplines will be studying and making discoveries. So please join me in celebrating Kathy for her accomplishments and thanking her again for her continued generosity to the UC Santa Cruz community. Thanks.
That's the part Sandy missed most, was a chance to hug her grad student. Well, I'm going to start exactly where Sandy started. If there's any part of a university that's going to bear my name and try to honor me, it could not be a better part than the library. I was saying to Bronwyn as we walked over here from where we parked, that old little building just over there, that was the science library when I was on campus. And it was absolutely a place of both refuge and help for me. I don't know what it's like inside today, but back in my day, it was the most wonderful, cozy place to nestle in on cold, foggy, rainy days. Remember, I had changed majors from languages to geology, so my sophomore year was a scamper. One of the classes that Gary Griggs had advised me to take was mineralogy, and the professor that first day in class wrote the simplest equation in all of geology on the board, Snell's law. which says the angle of right? The angle of refraction, right? The angle of incidence, the angle of, great. He wrote that with the trigonometric expressions on it. I wasn't sure if he pronounced it sine or sin, but I wrote it down very dutifully, copied it exactly, and scampered off to the Bay Tree bookstore to buy the optics textbook required for the course, and at the other end of the Bay Tree, to buy the trigonometry for dummies course, because I had never taken trig. So that was my sophomore year, scampering up a hill, steeper than I ever imagined. But the library was not only where I could take my work and go get a quiet space or with a partner student and figure it out. The library was the stacks. And I am so very delighted that you will actually still find stacks of books on the lower floor. And they're deep sea research and volumes that I remember pouring through. Because I adored being able to wander the stacks and find a journal that, of course, I had never heard of and I didn't know existed. And every single one of them opened for me a little glimpse, a little bit of a window on the full span of this field that I was bending my career towards. I had really no idea where I was going, and to be able to get that bit of a survey sense in that very random, sporadic, smorgasbord kind of way, it was a joy to me, and it was really indispensable to my development. Now, I'm going to say something that you might think is a little tacky here, but Sandy's a good enough friend that I'm going to dare it. I actually lay some claim to both of these floors. Those are Hubble images. On my second space flight, we put the Hubble telescope into orbit. And if you don't think this is also an Earth Sciences floor, you just look at the stones that make up these countertops. So I won't compete for naming space, but trust me, I love this space too. And I think you've heard all the themes that Sandy and I share, and they are that being a scientist is not what you saw on the cartoon growing up of a lab coat maniacally pounding away on some data in a lab. To be a scientist is to be passionate about understanding how our world works, how our universe works. And for many scientists, I think actually for most scientists, a correlate part of that motivation is to understand us and our place in that world, and to find ways to contribute to our collective further understanding of that and better use of that insight to live together wisely and well on this precious planet that we have. You see, Santa Cruz made me the person who's standing here today. It means the world to me to have this affiliation to this treasured place. So, Alec and Claudia, thank you for believing in this vision. Thank you for being so committed to the student experience that has motivated the team here to make this space what it is, and for helping propel it to reality. And Chancellor, Gary, all of you, thank you for coming here tonight and supporting this really wonderful campus.
Thank you. Thank you both. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Please continue to enjoy the space. We have more time, and feel free to ask me any questions. Thank you.